are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for
keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, February 26th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today, but before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, with that being said, let's get into what we are going to talk about for today. So, starting off the show, I'm going to go through some recent news and headlines just around football in general. So, I'll talk about that in a second, or some of them in a second. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about the Bengals and them placing the franchise tag on wide receiver Tee Higgins. So we'll talk about that. That'll be a Bengals segment. Then in the third part of the show, we'll talk about some teams that are going to be aggressive or could be aggressive in free agency and what some of their needs might be. And then in the final part of the show, we'll talk about Russell Wilson and his desire to win at least 2 more Super Bowls, and we'll talk about whether that is doable or not. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about some headlines that I have looked at and want to just discuss, because some of them I think would be a little bit difficult to cover 15 minutes of. So I just thought there's some that I touch upon just in this segment. So one of them I thought was interesting is the Commanders are getting some interest of their quarterback Sam Howell. Multiple teams are interested in him, and the Commanders, they could be moving off of him here in the offseason. And I think that would be beneficial for Sam Howell, because it's obvious with the number 2 pick, the Commanders are probably taking a quarterback. And whether that's somehow Caleb Williams or if it's Drake May, Jaden Daniels, it's going to be a quarterback who they're going to end up taking. And, with the new regime now in place, it seems like Sam Howell, he's going to be on his way out. And, this could be a good thing for him. Because, again, I thought, at points during the year, it looked like maybe Sam Howell could be the guy for Washington. And then things kind of just fell apart towards the end of the year. I think he ended up finishing with 21 touchdowns to 21 interceptions. He did throw a lot of picks this year. But again, at times during the year, he looked good. So I thought, maybe Washington might have found their guy, but I guess not. And again, Washington was not a very good team this year. 4-13 on the season, which is not good at all. So, this could be good for both sides. I mean, Sam Howell passed for almost 4,000 yards, 3,946 passing yards. 21 touchdowns to 21 interceptions. So, again, not great. Maybe he ends up going somewhere else and he could, in a better system, maybe he could become a decent quarterback. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. But some other stuff I wanted to touch upon as well. So the NFL, they may be looking to change their kickoff rule and do something similar to how the XFL was doing it. Now, for some reason, I can't find Oh, here it is. Yeah, so the NFL could adopt the XFL's current, now it's the UFL's current kickoff model for the 2024 season. So this is what the XFL's kickoff is. So the kicker lines up at the 30-yard line with 10 other members of the kickoff team lining up at the opponent's 35, 5 yards away from the returning team. The kicker and returner are the only players who can move until the ball is fielded. Touchbacks are placed at the 35-yard line. So now this is what the NFL model would be. So kicking teams line up at its 35-yard line with 8 returning team members within 15 yards. Double team blocks are prohibited. Touchbacks are placed at the 25-yard line. So basically the NFL, what they're trying to do is they want to encourage more returns while reducing high-speed collisions. Only 22% of kickoffs were returned in 2023. None of the 13 kickoffs in the Super Bowl were returned. So the NFL wants to increase kickoff returns without increasing the concussion rate. Concussions on kickoffs was the reason why the NFL recently changed its kickoff model in the first place. And yeah, I mean, listen, kickoffs are an important part of the game, and it's an exciting play. I mean, Devin Hester, he recently got into the Hall of Fame, and his career was built off of that. And I think a lot of people were complaining about the rule changes because it kind of took away the recent rule changes kind of took away from the excitement of that play. I mean, Devin Hester returned to kick in the Super Bowl that he was in with the Bears. I also, back when the Broncos and the Seahawks played against each other, you had Percy Harvin returning a kickoff. It's an important part of the game, so, and I get it. Like, you want to reduce injury. So we'll see what ends up happening there. Also another thing too, separate news. So Eric Bieniemy is going to become the associate head coach / offensive coordinator for UCLA. There was some. I know he, was around the Chiefs recently, so I thought maybe the Chiefs could bring him back because obviously spent many years as the Chiefs offensive coordinator. Then he went to Washington, became the offensive coordinator for the Commanders, and now with Dan Quinn being brought in and Cliff Kingsbury, Bieniemy was out. So now he's going to college, and he is going to be the next OC for the for UCLA. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's just kind of interesting how he can't get a head coaching gig. I mean, there's maybe some reasons behind it, but I don't know. I just feel like him being with the Chiefs, being the offensive coordinator all those years, I feel like and he got interviews. It's just for some reason he just could not get a head coaching job. So now he's going to be the offensive coordinator for a college team. So we'll see how that goes. But that's something interesting. Let's see, anything else? I did see something with Andy Reid. I think they're looking to rework his contract, if I can find that here. But yeah, so let me know what you guys think about the Eric Bieniemy stuff. Yeah, so the Chiefs are working to make Andy Reid the highest paid head coach. This is a report from about an hour ago. He definitely deserves it. The success that the Chiefs have had, over the past 6 seasons, that's rightfully deserved for him. And, they're looking to continue that success, for many years to come. Andy Reid, obviously they talked to Andy Reid and Travis Kelce about retirement. They're not looking to leave anytime soon. They're already talking about three-peating, which no NFL team has ever done. So, yeah, this is rightfully deserved for Andy Reid. And, we'll see what the specifics of this ends up being. But, so it looks like Andy Reid, is not going anywhere. And again, as long as you got Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, the Chiefs are always going to be in it. And again, he's one of those players that was talking about the three-peat is Patrick Mahomes. So Yeah, the Chiefs are keeping their guys together. Well, we got to see what happens on the defensive side of the ball now, because now you got to figure out, how to bring back Chris Jones, L'Jarius Sneed as well. So, there's still some work that they got to do to, keep all their guys. I mean, losing Chris Jones on defense would be, that would be huge. The defense would take a major step back without Chris Jones. And so they got to make sure that they bring him back. I mean, he said at the parade that he's coming back for the three-peat, but, the Chiefs were partying a little too much. So, they got to negotiate something. And I'm sure that they'll figure it out. But, if Chris Jones can get a bigger contract elsewhere, then he might end up taking that. So, that's something got to keep an eye on as we move along here. But, yeah, free agency is going to be coming up soon. We already have some other moves that were made as well, cap casualties. The Dolphins actually cut some players. They cut Xavier Howard, one of their corners, and he was a really good corner for a couple years. But they cut him. They also cut Emmanuel Ogbah as well. So, and I did see something that said it's possible maybe. I think he likes the Texans, so maybe the Texans pick him up, and we'll talk about the Texans later in the show as being one of the teams that could be very aggressive in free agency. But yeah, the Dolphins, they released him after 8 seasons. He became one of the top corners for a stretch in Miami, earning Pro Bowl honors in 2018, and had an All-Pro selection in 2020. But yeah, it's because of the contract. They they had to let him go, and we'll see who picks him up. Again, like I said, I saw something that said the Texans, maybe his desire to play there, so we'll see. But he's on the market now, and there's definitely plenty of teams that could use a cornerback, and maybe somebody that they consider. So that's something we'll keep an eye on. But there'll be more cap casualties in the coming weeks. I know I talked about teams like the Saints that their cap situation is the worst out of anybody. And actually, the salary cap also did get raised, so that kind of helps a little bit, but still, like not by that much. Especially again, if you're the Saints and you have over $80 million, you're $80 million over the cap. I mean, it's just, I don't know how they're able to deal with that year after year, but yeah, that's another thing too, is that the salary cap was raised as well. So, but again, I mean, cap casualties are going to continue to happen. I talked about some cap casualty candidates last week. I think Xavier Howard was one of the players that was listed for the Dolphins. So that ended up happening, and then like I said, they also let go of Emmanuel Ogbah as well. So we'll see where they end up signing. If they end up signing with new teams, that's something we will keep an eye on. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it with some of the headlines that I wanted to talk about. Yeah, so in the next part of the show, we'll talk about Tee Higgins, as he was one of the first players to be franchise tagged, and that was kind of going in that direction. The Bengals, it was reported that they were most likely going to do that, so that ends up happening. Also, another thing too, actually another headline was Jason Kelce still hasn't officially announced his retirement yet. And I know I talked about this, I think last week, how he still hasn't officially retired, and he's still trying to keep himself in good shape in case he does indeed come back. So again, that's something else we got to keep an eye on. Because I know Travis Kelce said at the Super Bowl, he's still got some good football left. Yeah, so I know everyone was saying, well, he's retired. Well, not so fast. He hasn't officially announced that yet. And that's why I said from here on out, unless directly from the player, if they say they're retiring, I'll believe it, because I just feel like we're in an age now where everybody's just trying to rush to be the first one to report things. And, it should come directly from the source. It shouldn't come from somebody else. But again, that's just the world we live in, and we just have to accept that. But yeah, so that was the other thing too that I saw, that Jason Kelsey's still keeping himself. I mean, he ran a marathon, so he's still trying to keep himself in shape again in case he does indeed come back. And listen, if he comes back, that would be great for the Eagles, because that's a big piece on their offensive line, and if they lose that, it's going to be very hard to replace it. So, but yeah, so with that, we are going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will talk about the Bengals franchise tagging Tee Higgins and the impact on that, and really, again, that's just going to be a Bengals segment, what that means for the Bengals, and what our expectations are for them for next season. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to talk about the Bengals franchise tagging wide receiver Tee Higgins. So they placed the franchise tag on him. If a long-term agreement is not reached by July 15th, he'll play under a one-year deal worth $21.816 million. That's the league-wide franchise tag among wide receivers for 2024. Deadline for teams to use the franchise tag or transition tag is March 5th. Higgins, a second-round draft pick in 2020, was set to become a free agent after his rookie contract expired. In his first 4 seasons with the Bengals, he has recorded 257 receptions for 3,684 receiving yards and 24 touchdowns, with 31 receptions for 457 yards and 3 touchdowns in 7 postseason games. This marks the second consecutive offseason where Higgins' long-term future with the Bengals was talked about. But yeah, so we'll see if they end up getting the deal done, long-term deal done. In 2023, he played in only 12 games, totaled 42 receptions, 656 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns. And obviously, another receiver that's going to be looking to get paid is their top wide receiver, and that is Ja'Marr Chase. So that's something else that the Bengals are going to have to deal with at some point. But this, I think this was very important for the Bengals to do, because also the other thing is they're going to be losing Tyler Boyd most likely in free agency. He was a long-time receiver there. And, you got to keep – you're not going to be able to keep everybody. So I think, and Tee Higgins, I think we could all say is a better receiver than Tyler Boyd is. So obviously you want to keep him around. If you're gonna lose one of them, Boyd's probably the one you're gonna end up losing. So this is important. But then the other thing too is Ja'Marr Chase. I mean, Ja'Marr Chase is gonna want to get paid as well. And I think also, and I was thinking about this too. I think we all tend to forget that. Well, I don't think all of us, but maybe a lot of people tend to forget that Tee Higgins was here before Ja'Marr Chase. I mean, he was basically Joe Burrow's top target. Burrow's rookie season. And, then obviously the year after that, and obviously Burrow got hurt his rookie season, but then the year after that, Chase gets drafted, and, they reunite, pair of LSU teammates. But actually also didn't, Tee Higgins also went to LSU, right? Let me just double check on that. But yeah, I mean, like, you kind of just forget that he was, he was there Burrow's rookie season. Oh, yeah, never mind. He went to Clemson. I lied. So yeah, won the 2019 college football playoff national championship as a sophomore and was selected by the Bengals with the first pick. And I don't know why I thought he went to, LSU, but yeah. So he went to Clemson. Yeah. See, I'm not great when it comes to, like, if you were to ask me where some players went to college, I probably couldn't tell you. Obviously there's some that I do know, but there's a lot of them where I'm like, yeah, I couldn't tell you. But yeah, so he went to Clemson. My mistake. I don't know why I thought he went to LSU, but I mean, that LSU team was insane. I mean, you had Burrow, Chase, Justin Jefferson. I mean, that's unbelievable that they were all together. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be important. And if the Bengals are healthy next season, I mean, they're going to be one of the top teams in the AFC. A healthy Burrow, because when Burrow was healthy, I mean, this team was rolling, and it looked, and it's funny because they were still like in last place, but eventually, the Steelers fell off. The Browns, the Browns are still winning games. Obviously, once Flacco took over, and Flacco played well towards the end, but I mean, I think a healthy Burrow, they definitely would have made the playoffs, and who knows what would ended up happening. Could they have been the team that knocked off the Chiefs? Again, it's hypothetical. Who knows? But with the healthy Joe Burrow, you saw what this team could do, and bringing back Tee Higgins, hopefully they work out a long-term deal, and then you got to figure out. Long-term deal with Jamar Chase. You paid Joe Burrow, so now it's really just you got to make sure you keep those guys together. The running game is going to be interesting because they weren't a great running team. Joe Mixon was okay, but obviously he's not the same player he once was when they first drafted him. You saw, Chase Brown, their rookie running back. He kind of made a few plays towards the end of the year, so I think he'll be a factor in the running game. We'll see if they try to add to the position, maybe draft another running back. But we'll see. But, I mean, listen, the most important thing, they just got to make sure that Joe Burrow is healthy. Because Burrow had a, kind of an injury-plagued season, dealt with the calf for most of the year. Then once he got healthy, that game against the Cardinals, it looked like the Bengals, Burrow was finally getting healthier, and they beat the 49ers by a couple of scores on the road. So they looked like they were going on a run, and then that just kind of got cut short. He had that mysterious the whole thing with them not putting him on the injury report, and then he ends up getting the wrist injury in the game against the Ravens, and then that pretty much ended his season. And listen, Jake Browning played well at points during his time starting for them, but they still ended up finishing with the winning record. It's just they fell a little bit short of making the playoffs. Even if they did, they probably weren't going to go far. But it's just with Burrow, they definitely could have made a deep playoff run. But we'll see what happens next year. This is definitely, the right thing that they did here. Can't lose Tee Higgins because, if he hits the open market, somebody's going to pay him, a lot of money because there's teams that need wide receivers. The Giants. I always bring up the Giants anytime we talk about receivers because they're one of those teams that desperately needs one. Maybe, he could have went to somebody in their division. Maybe the Ravens could have said, hey, why don't you come here and stay in the division, But, yeah, or you go to the Texans, play with Stroud maybe. There's plenty of teams out there that maybe pretty much every team. The Chiefs, there's a lot of teams that could use wide receivers. But the Bengals, this was a priority, and they tag them, and now they got to try to figure out a long-term deal. But again, they're going to be one of the top teams in the AFC, and they play in a very tough division. That's the other thing too. The division is tough, but with the healthy Burrow, I mean they're going to be fine. They will be fine. I know they earlier in the season when Burrow was not healthy, they lost to the Ravens. I mean, they got swept by the Ravens, but I was curious. We don't know what would have happened if Burrow didn't get hurt, because that game was when he threw the touchdown pass that he got injured on. I mean, I think that put the Bengals ahead. So that game looked like that was going to be back and forth. And then the Ravens kind of ran away with it once Browning got put into the game. So, it just, injuries in general this year really hurt the season. So, and again, they're going to continue to be part of the game. I mean, the NFL could do whatever they want, but, injuries happen. That's just, it's part of the game, unfortunately. And this year, this was one of the worst years when it came to injuries. And especially the quarterbacks. You had Burrow, Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Anthony Richardson. I mean, there were so many quarterbacks Justin Herbert, so many quarterbacks that got hurt this year. Daniel Jones. I know I just keep naming them, but that's just how many quarterbacks got hurt. So, again, hopefully it doesn't happen. Next year we get a healthy Burrow, and let's see, what that division is going to be like. Also, Deshaun Watson as well getting hurt. I mean, the Browns, look at how many quarterbacks they went through this year. That division is going to be very competitive once again. You had 3 of the 4 teams making the playoffs. I mean, with the healthy Burrow, I mean, the Steelers, you got to look at them as, probably ranking them last in terms of the quarterbacks. And we'll see how they address the quarterback position. I know it seems like they're going to stick with Kenny Pickett, but they also want to bring in competition. I think there's talk that I did talk about this, that they could bring back Mason Rudolph. Because I talked about there's a QB controversy possibly brewing, because there's some players out there that are advocating for Mason Rudolph to be the starter, and then you also have the Steelers being like, well, Kenny Pickett's our guy right now. And listen, there's free agents out there that they could also target: Ryan Tannehill, Kirk Cousins, obviously. Also, there's Russell Wilson talk possibly, which Russell Wilson, again, we will get into in the final part of the show. But right now, listen, you're competing in a division where you have Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and if Deshaun Watson can maybe turn back the clock and be the Deshaun Watson that we know he can be, then that's just another, problem for them. So, but we will, again, just have to wait and see. But, with the back to the Bengals, though, they're looking to have a bounce back season next year. And listen, if everything goes well, if everybody stays healthy, this team is going to be a force to be reckoned with. And this is the team that I said has the best chance to take down the Chiefs, because they've done it before. Now, again, they did lose in the AFC Championship game the following year to the Chiefs, but that was a very close game as well. Every game that Mahomes and Burrow have played against each other. Now, again, Burrow has won most of those matchups. Mahomes got his first victory against Burrow last year in the AFC Championship game. But, again, we could say, Burrow owns Mahomes. Every game was a 3-point game. It's not like Burrow is, winning by multiple scores. It's a 3-point game every single time, basically. And that's the same thing with Brady and Mahomes. I know they're 3-3 against each other. Yeah, you could talk about the Super Bowl. The Bucs won that. But, again, the other matchups, they were close. They were close. So we can't really say, this guy owns this guy. We can't say Brady. Brady does not own Mahomes. Brady does not own Mahomes. Burrow does not own Mahomes either. And, when Burrow did beat Mahomes in the championship game, they ended up losing the Super Bowl to the Rams. And then last year, well, I don't know if should I say last year or 2 years ago now, because now we're kind of moving towards the new season already. So in 2022, when Mahomes finally beat Burrow in the championship game, Mahomes went on to win the Super Bowl. And all the other victories that Burrow has had, those came in the regular season. So, that's just the other thing too. But listen, Joe Burrow is a great quarterback. This is a great rivalry, and it's weird because in the beginning it was like, oh, it's Lamar Jackson and Mahomes. That's going to be the new Manning Brady. Then you had Mahomes and Josh Allen, and then Mahomes and Joe Burrow. It's like all these guys. Is this the new Manning Brady? Is this the new Manning Brady rivalry? It's just, you don't know. But listen again, when you see all these guys from the past, era retiring, and I've said this before, because again, you didn't know what to expect with all these guys like Breeze and Peyton and Brady, all these guys retiring. We're in good hands. We are. Because we have a lot of talent here. Now, again, Mahomes has won a lot of championships, and some of these other guys need to start winning some too. But we're in good hands. We're in good hands with the quarterbacks that we got here. So, but yeah, so that's pretty much it when talking about this. Let me know what you guys think about the Bengals franchise tagging Tee Higgins. Who else do you expect to be franchise tagged? Let me know. So before we go into our next break, just want to remind you guys to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/GSMC Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/GSMC And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we will talk about some teams that could possibly be aggressive in free agency. So that is what we'll do when we come back from our second break. So with that being said, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC. To access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about some teams that could be aggressive in free agency this offseason. Even though I have the segment titled "That Will Be Aggressive in Free Agency." But yeah, so let's kind of take a look at some of them. So 6 teams here that I have. The first one would be the Washington Commanders. So some changes. We talked about Sam Howell probably or possibly being traded. They let go of Ron Rivera, bringing Dan Quinn now to be the head coach. So they have a lot of cap space, and they have the number 2 overall pick in the draft, which they're most likely going to take a quarterback, one of the top 2 quarterbacks. So their cap space for 2024 is $73.6 million. Now, they let go of some guys on the defense. Well, they traded some guys away, like Chase Young, Montez Sweat, and obviously the Bears, that was a good trade for them. The 49ers, Chase Young, again, the effort was, the lack of effort was something that was discussed. I keep bringing up how many times am I going to bring up the play in the championship game? But, yeah, so, Chase Young's a free agent. Montez Sweat, Bears got him. A new contract. So, they're good there. But, there's uncertainty at the quarterback position. They also had Jacoby Brissett as well. So we'll see we'll see if they maybe bring back Jacoby Brissett to be a backup. I think he's I think he's a quality backup quarterback that could definitely step in and win you games. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But one of the things that was talked about here is churn up the offensive line, adding to that, and also retooling the defense because you subtracted some key guys on your defensive line. Also, the back end definitely could use some work as well. I mean, you go back to games like the game on Thanksgiving against the Cowboys, which I remember Tony Romo talking about how he just really wasn't a fan of, their how they were playing, against the Dallas receivers. And again, Dallas won that game by a lot. And also, you go to the Dolphins game as well. Tyreek Hill ran wild against them too. Was running wide open. They just it was a team that just did not play well this year, and to put it lightly. Again, they went 4-13, and they need a lot of help. Now, there's some big free agents out there on defense, like Brian Burns, Danielle Hunter, Josh Allen of the Jaguars, and also, and this is an article I got it from. There's also a possibility they could pursue guys, from Dallas's defense because, obviously Dan Quinn being a coach over there, being the defensive coordinator, they could bring guys in from Dallas. Now, you could say that, you could look, hear that and be like, well, Dallas just, did you see how they played against the Packers in the playoffs? Yeah. But again, I mean, Dallas's defense, they definitely were opportunistic. They're a defense that did get turnovers. So, I mean, again, one game in the playoffs, I mean, you could look at that and say, well, it shouldn't define you because of it's one game. But, yeah, I mean, again, Dan Quinn has been a coach of teams that have given up a lot of points and have also blown leads as well. So, yeah, there's also that too. But, yeah, so that's a team that could definitely be big spenders in the offseason. So another team that also had a coaching change, and that is the New England Patriots. So they have a little less cap space than the Commanders. So they got $69.5 million in cap space. So, yeah, you got Gerard Mayo taking over now. Quarterback position is another thing that they're another team that has to address that as well. We'll see what ends up happening with Mac Jones and whether or not, he gets traded. So we'll keep an eye on that. But they're also a team that could use an upgrade at quarterback. And also, they got a lack of playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. That's another team that needs receivers that I failed to mention in the last segment when talking about Tee Higgins. They could use that. They talk about potential targets like Mike Evans. The Bucs are actually trying to work to, bring him back. I did see a report of that. Calvin Ridley's also another receiver that's out there. You got Michael Pittman in case the Colts, they don't franchise tag him as well. I know they did have Tee Higgins listed, but obviously he got franchise tagged by the Bengals. So, that's not going to happen. But, and obviously the defense is still solid. So, obviously you can, add to that too. But the offense is definitely where there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. So we'll see what the Patriots end up doing. The Bears, another team, they got $67 million in cap space. Now, again, they got a really big decision to make because, again, with the quarterback position, because I know we talked about this last week with Justin Fields, and, what are the Bears going to do? Are they going to move off of him? Are they going to keep him? Are they going to trade away the number one overall pick? Or are they going to do both and draft a quarterback and keep Justin Fields, which nobody wants the Bears to do, but, again, that's something that's also on the table. But, yeah, they got a lot of cap space. I mean, again, they're also picking in – they also have another first-round pick, so they could use that and maybe add another weapon to the offense. You saw the defense improved as well. Again, I mean, this is a huge offseason for the Bears, so they cannot afford to mess this up. And on top of that, again, another division that is going to be better. The Packers, they're going to be better next year. The Lions are still going to be good. The Vikings, if Kirk Cousins is the guy that if they end up bringing back Kirk Cousins, and he ends up being the Kirk Cousins before the injury, that's another team that you're going to have a problem with. So the Bears, you can't screw this up. You got to get this right. This is a big offseason for them. So, you can add another weapon. I think they could use another receiver. On the defensive side of the ball, I know Jalen Johnson, their corner, is a free agent, so maybe maybe you try to bring him back. But maybe you address that position in the draft possibly. We'll see what ends up happening. But, yeah, this is a huge offseason for them. So another team, Tennessee Titans, we talked about. They have $65.2 million in cap space. But, yeah, they're a team that's in rebuild mode. I mean, you look at the Bears. They're a team that, they're trying to, maybe make the playoffs. But, yeah, the Titans, we'll see what they end up doing. Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, they're going to be playing for new teams next year. Obviously Will Levis was kind of up and down. He had a great debut, but then after that, it was just kind of, again, up and down. He was a part of that comeback victory against the Dolphins. But it just, again, that was just the first year. Let's see now if he can maybe take that next step in year 2. Again, they got some holes that they have to address. Again, maybe adding more to the offense, surround him with more talent as well. But they have a lot of cap space. So, we'll see what ends up happening. New head coach. So, yeah, a lot of changes in Tennessee. So, we'll see what they end up doing. You got the Colts and the Texans. Colts have $58.9 million in cap space. The Texans have $54.2 million. They have Michael Pittman Jr. and Kenny Moore that are free agents. One of the things they talk about is bolstering the secondary and maybe re-signing Gardner Minshew to back up Anthony Richardson, because Gardner Minshew did a great job taking over as the starting quarterback. He's one of the top backup quarterbacks in the NFL. The Colts were really close to making the playoffs. It's just, that heartbreaker against the Texans, in Indy the last week of the regular season, that hurt. Talks about them focusing in on, adding some more players on the defensive side of the ball. I think that's another team that could also use a weapon. On offense, that can't hurt. Again, full season of Jonathan Taylor, full season of Anthony Richardson. That team, again, they have a good offseason. That's another team that could be a problem next year. They were a problem this year, and they almost made the playoffs. The Texans, this is, again, they could look to maybe add, another wide receiver. Running back, I think, is more of a priority, I would say, because, you have Nico Collins. Tank Dell comes back and he bounces back from his injury. You got him. You saw how well he was playing before he got hurt. If the Texans could maybe add another wide receiver too to go along with that, that would be really beneficial for them. But I think running back, because there's a lot of running backs that are available, a lot. So, maybe they add one of those guys. Like I said, I think Saquon. I would love to see Saquon go to the Texans. I think that would be amazing. That would only just, that would only help that offense. And again, I want to see Saquon in a good situation. That would be a really good situation for him if he ended up there. But we'll see. And then also, again, they have the Texans also have a lot of guys on the defensive side of the ball that are free agents on the defensive line. So, that, again, defense is going to be something they're going to address as well between that and the draft. And, again, that's something we'll keep an eye on. But, continue to build around C.J. Stroud. And, again, the Texans, way ahead of schedule. Nobody expected them to win the division or, get and win a playoff game. But that ended up happening. And they're only going to be better next year. So, let's see what they do. But yeah, 3 of the 6 teams, half of them are the AFC South. So, yeah, but that's pretty much it when talking about this. Some other teams out there that I maybe didn't talk about that you would say will be aggressive, but these are just some of the teams that will be or could be. I expect the Texans to be aggressive. I think they should again. They got to try to maybe add a running back, whether it's through free agency or the draft. That's going to be addressed because Singletary did a nice job, but even in the playoff game against the Ravens, they really couldn't run the ball. But also, then at one point they fell behind by a lot. But again, that game was 10-10. It's just the running game. Yeah, it just I was a little bit that's got to be something they address. That's the bottom line. So and I think they will, but because you want to have a balanced offense. You want to surround C.J. Stroud with as much talent as possible, which again I think they're gonna do what they can. They're gonna be that. Listen, that AFC South it was a laughing stock at one point. It's not anymore. Not anymore. I feel bad for the Titans because they're kind of like, because listen, I know the Jags kind of fell apart, but they're gonna bounce back, I think. But the Titans are kind of just the one team now that's in rebuild mode, and for a while, they were kind of the best team in that division. A couple of years ago, they were the 1 seed in the AFC, which, I think some people tend to forget. But yeah, that was just a couple of years ago. But now, now they're the team that's in rebuild mode, and we got some good young quarterbacks in this division. And we'll see if Will Levis can kind of get himself back in the conversation of that because, people talked about Anthony Richardson and how dynamic he was before he got hurt, and we saw what C.J. Stroud did this year. Trevor Lawrence, before he got hurt, was, playing well. The Jags were 8-3 at one point, and then just, again, things fell apart. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it when talking about this. Let me know what you guys think. Again, a team that maybe I didn't talk about, who do you expect to be aggressive in free agency? So, when we come back from our final break of the show, we are going to talk about Russell Wilson and his desire to win 2 more Super Bowls. So we will discuss that when we come back from our final break of the show. So stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are now going to discuss Russell Wilson and some of his recent comments, talking about the desire to win at least 2 more Super Bowls. He did talk about how he wants to stay in Denver or play for a team that wants him to be their starter. He wants to be a starter. That's the bottom line. He wants to be a starter. He talked about his burning desire to win another Lombardi Trophy, stating he has more fire than ever, particularly after the challenges he's faced in the past 2 years. He did talk about his preference of staying with the Broncos to finish his career, citing his commitment to the team and his desire to win. Past 2 years have been difficult for him, and the Broncos with a combined record of 13-21 under two different head coaches, and Wilson being benched for the last two games of the 2023 season. Winning and returning to Super Bowl contention are top priorities for Russell Wilson, who has previously won one Super Bowl and appeared in two with the Seahawks. Despite his love for the city of Denver, Wilson also stresses the importance of being in a place where he is wanted and can contribute to winning. But yeah, so he wants to finish his career in Denver, although it's just like, I mean, you don't even know. Like, I mean, you see like, oh, he's most likely going to be released. Then you hear like Sean Payton's comments, and it's just, while he's still on the team, and it's a lot of just, it's very unclear right now as to what is going to happen. I mean, I think he ends up going somewhere else. I mean, I think ultimately, he's going to end up going to a different team. Now, who is that team going to be? Now, the big thing here is he wants to win 2 more Super Bowls. And is it possible? I mean, listen, as Kevin Garnett once said, anything is possible. This, though, yeah, I'm not sure about that. Because now, he's playing, right now he spent the last 2 years playing in the AFC. And you see, the quarterbacks that are now coming in with, like guys I just talked about, C.J. Stroud now, and Anthony Richardson obviously got hurt, but another guy that was playing really well and then got hurt, of course. And then already with what we've already, you got Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes in the Broncos division, and now Jim Harbaugh is there with the Chargers. You got Burrow, you got Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. There's all these quarterbacks out there. And that just makes, the path to the Super Bowl very difficult. So you got that. Then winning the Super Bowl. I mean, right now, if I'm Russell Wilson, I'm trying to go to a team that's in the NFC. Because the NFC is the weaker conference. And, it's look, you got the 49ers. They're still going to be there. And Russell Wilson knows that team very well. It seemed like, Russ's last couple of years, again, playing against the 49ers, Russ played well. And even with the 49ers going to championship games and the Super Bowl, I mean, Russ played well against those 49ers teams. I mean, again, but this is back when he played with Seattle. It's different now. He's coming off of 2 years where it hasn't been great. It hasn't been great. That's the other thing, too, is Russ's level of play has definitely declined since he left Seattle. And, is it on Russ? Is it on the team? I mean, it's definitely a combination. I mean, listen, I thought when he went to Denver, I thought that was going to pan out immediately. They were going to have success and, make the playoffs. But, yeah, myself and many other people were wrong because Nathaniel Hackett, he was in over his head with the Broncos being the head coach, and he ended up getting let go, in the middle of the season. And then, they bring in Sean Payton. And listen, the Broncos played better. I mean, I know they did give up 70 points against the Dolphins, but after that game, they started to play better. I mean, at one point, again, they went on that winning streak, and you thought, okay, maybe, they turned the corner. Maybe they could sneak into the playoffs. They had that big win against the Bills in Buffalo, although they were helped out a little bit towards the end with the penalty that, allowed them to re-kick the field goal, and they ended up winning that game. But it kind of fell apart then at the end. And, they ended up not making the playoffs. They finished 8-9. Russ got benched. I mean, again, you saw Sean Payton yelling at him on the sidelines against the Lions, when the Lions, blew them out. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think, Russ probably is going to end up somewhere else, but we'll see. We'll see. But, yeah, it is going to be – it's really tough to win one. I mean, the last time Russell Wilson won a Super Bowl, I was in middle school. And, you see some of these guys like Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers, and you think, oh, man, they're going to win multiple Super Bowls. And Peyton Manning for a while had one. And, Brees and Rodgers, they both Brees is, Brees retired. Rodgers hopefully is going to, play again next year. Well, he is going to play next year, and we'll see, if he is able to bounce back, which I hope he does. But that's a separate topic for another day. But yeah, a lot of these guys, it's tough to win one. I mean, look at Dan Marino. Dan Marino has none. He has nothing. He has no Super Bowls. Well, I shouldn't say he has nothing, but he has no Super Bowls. And listen, Seattle, they were close to being a dynasty, and because if they win that Super Bowl against the Patriots, I mean, who knows what ends up happening, and maybe they end up, because I mean, after that just the team just unraveled after that. So if that ends up not happening and they end up winning that Super Bowl, I mean, who knows? Maybe they go on and they become a dynasty. But it just that ended up not happening, and they didn't get back to the Super Bowl. They didn't get back to a championship game either. I mean, Seattle has been a team that's made the playoffs. Well, did make the playoffs a lot with Russell Wilson, but they just, they couldn't get past the divisional round. They lost to the Falcons in the divisional round. They lost to the Panthers, the Cowboys in the first round. I know in 2018, the Rams. Yeah, it's just they could not get past the second round. And then ultimately Russ gets hurt his final year as the starting quarterback of the Seahawks, and then he's on the Broncos. And they haven't made the playoffs. And Russ is getting older. He was on that trajectory to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. Now all of a sudden, there's some conversations of whether he is a Hall of Famer or not. Now, if he gets another shot somewhere else and somehow he turns back the clock and is the Russell Wilson he was with Seattle, then the conversation can be revisited. But I mean, it's a conversation that's still going to be had. But if he ends up playing well somewhere else, then we get back to, okay, you know what? Maybe he is a Hall of Famer. I mean, I think you could still make. I mean, you can make the case either way. Yeah. The 2 years in Denver has definitely left a bad taste in a lot of people. So again, this is another storyline to keep an eye on for the offseason, where he ends up. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I mean, 2 more Super Bowls. I mean, and you see what the Chiefs are doing every year. Yeah, it's just I don't see it. I don't see it. I mean, you got to end up in a really good situation. And I think you want to look on the NFC. The NFC is where you'd probably go, because that's an easier pathway to maybe get there. But again, it's not easy to get to a Super Bowl. But again, compare the NFC to the AFC. I mean, the AFC is a gauntlet. The NFC just, again, like a lot of guys have retired. Breeze and, now Rodgers is in the AFC. You got the 49ers there. I mean, you got Matthew Stafford and the Rams. The Lions now are a very good team. You still, I mean, the NFC East, I mean, the top 2 teams kind of, the Cowboys fell apart in one game. Eagles, they finished, I don't know what happened to them. They collapsed. But yeah, and again, if Russ goes to a team in the NFC, let's say, and he plays like the Russell Wilson from the Seattle days, then yeah, maybe you got a good shot. But it's just, you haven't been back there in so long. It's just, and on top of that, the last 2 years that you've played, I mean, the first year wasn't great. Second year, 26 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, not bad. But again, it's just it's going to be very hard to do that, and I don't see it. But who knows? Crazier things have happened. But he talks about he's still got that passion. He's motivated. So, I mean, listen, a lot of guys can say that, and it doesn't really amount to anything. But who knows? Again, he's going to end up in the right situation. So we'll keep an eye on it. But I just thought that was interesting, And again, I mean, looked like he was going to, with that Seattle team, they were close to repeating, ended up not happening, and they ended up not getting close after that. And again, a lot of these guys, they win their first championship, and you're like, oh yeah, they're going to win multiple rings. And I said Peyton Manning as well. I mean, look at Peyton. I mean, it looked like he was going to retire without another ring. And then, with the Broncos, who Russ ended up beating, the first time the Broncos made it to the Super Bowl with Peyton. And that was when Peyton had that 55-touchdown season. It was unbelievable. The Broncos' offense was incredible. And the Legion of Boom shut them down. But then, when the Broncos had no fly zone, the defense carried Peyton to that Super Bowl. Despite Peyton playing, pretty bad. 9 touchdowns to 17 interceptions. But he got his second ring. It's hard. It's really hard. Again, the Chiefs are making it look easy right now, but, again, that's just a unique situation. We don't really see that very often. We've only seen it really, but now the Chiefs and, of course, the two separate dynasties with the Patriots. So, again, Russ has got to end up in a good situation for that to be possible. And he also has to play better, which, again, the last couple of years, and he's getting older, too. I'm not so sure about that. So, again, let me know what you guys think about this topic. Do you see Russell Wilson maybe going to a team and winning 2 more Super Bowls? I think the majority of people are going to say no, which I'm of that majority. But I don't know. Maybe one of you guys out there think, hey, yeah, he could win 2 more Super Bowls. So let me know what you guys think about that. But, so that is all the time that we have for today. I thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And, until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and like I said, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.